The ocean has always kept secrets. For every species we catalogue, scientists estimate 10 more remain undiscovered in the depths. Most people accept this as fact, file it away, and go about their lives. But every so often, something surfaces that refuses to fit into any known category, something that watches us watching it. The waters off Key West, Florida, have produced more than their share of strange encounters over the past 70 years. What makes these particular sightings different is not just their frequency, but their consistency. Witnesses, separated by decades, describe the same impossible details: glowing figures moving through the water with purpose, humanoid shapes that seem aware of their observers, and eyes that reflect light in ways no known marine animal can replicate. Key West sits at the southernmost tip of the Florida Keys, a chain of coral islands stretching into the Gulf of Mexico. The area is a diver's paradise: crystal clear water, thriving coral reefs, an ecosystem so diverse that marine biologists have spent entire careers studying single square miles of ocean floor. The waters here reach depths of over 600 feet in some channels. Underwater caves honeycomb the limestone bedrock. Strong currents move between the Atlantic and the Gulf, creating conditions that can shift from calm to treacherous within minutes. Local fishing communities have worked these waters for generations. Their knowledge runs deep. They understand the tides, the weather patterns, the seasonal movements of every commercially viable species. They are not people prone to flights of fancy. Yet starting in the early 1950s, fishermen began reporting something that made no sense. Something that appeared during night runs when the moon was dark and the ocean glowed with its own light. Bioluminescence is common in these waters. Dinoflagellates, tiny organisms that emit light when disturbed, often create spectacular displays. Dolphins and fish swimming through the water leave trails of green-blue light. It's beautiful, natural, and well understood. What the fishermen described was not that. They spoke of humanoid figures swimming alongside their boats, shapes that glowed from within rather than simply disturbing bioluminescent plankton, forms that moved with intelligence and purpose, keeping pace with vessels traveling at significant speed. Most kept quiet about what they saw. The fishing community is tight-knit and practical. Talk of glowing swimmers risked ridicule or worse, questions about sobriety. But the reports persisted. Different boats, different crews, always the same core details. In 1956, a shrimp trawler named the Maria Elena was working waters about 8 miles southwest of Key West. The captain, Miguel Santos, had been fishing these waters for 23 years. His crew consisted of his 2 brothers and a cousin. They knew the ocean. That night was moonless, perfect conditions for shrimping when the catch comes closer to the surface. Around midnight, they began pulling in their nets. The water around the boat suddenly lit up. Not the usual green glow of disturbed plankton. This was different, brighter, more concentrated. Miguel cut the engines. The glow didn't disperse. Instead, it intensified. Then he saw them. 3 figures swimming in formation beneath the surface, each roughly the size of an adult human but moving in ways no human could replicate. They didn't kick their legs or stroke with their arms. The motion was fluid, serpentine, like watching someone who had evolved to swim rather than learned it. The glow came from within their bodies. It pulsed gently, brightest near what would be the chest and head. The light was blue-white, almost electric in its intensity. Miguel grabbed a spotlight and aimed it at the water. The moment the beam hit, the figures scattered. They moved faster than any dolphin he had ever seen. Within seconds, they vanished into the deeper water beyond the boat. His brothers confirmed what he saw. All 3 witnesses described identical details: humanoid shapes, internal luminescence, impossible speed. Miguel filed no official report. He mentioned it to other captains over drinks at the docks. Some laughed, others went quiet. A few admitted they had seen similar things but never spoken about it publicly. The encounters continued throughout the 1960s and 70s. Most remained unreported. Fishermen developed an unspoken understanding. If you saw the glowing swimmers, you kept it to yourself, unless you wanted people questioning your judgment. But in 1978, something happened that brought the phenomenon into clearer focus. A group of marine biology students from the University of Florida were conducting a night dive off Sand Key, roughly 6 miles from Key West. They were studying nocturnal reef fish behavior. The dive was routine. Standard equipment, good visibility. 3 students and an instructor descended to about 60 feet. Sarah Martinez was one of those students. She had grown up in Miami and logged over 100 dives. She knew the underwater environment. She understood what belonged there and what didn't. 40 minutes into the dive, she noticed movement at the edge of her light beam. Something large was swimming parallel to the reef wall. She signaled her dive partner. Both turned their lights toward the movement. What they saw made Sarah forget to breathe for several seconds. The figure was humanoid, roughly 6 feet tall. It had arms and legs, though the proportions seemed slightly off. The limbs were longer, more slender than human anatomy would suggest, but what captured her attention was the light. The creature glowed, not from reflected light or bioluminescent plankton. The glow emanated from within its body, pulsing gently like a slow heartbeat. The light was strongest in the torso and head, fading slightly toward the extremities. The face, if it could be called that, was indistinct. Sarah couldn't make out clear features. The glow obscured details. But she saw the eyes. They reflected her dive light like an animal's eyes caught in headlights. The color was wrong, though, not the red or green reflection you see in most animals. This was silver, blue, metallic. The creature stopped swimming. It turned toward them. Sarah's heart hammered. She knew she should be scared, but the fear didn't come. Instead, she felt something else. Curiosity, maybe, or recognition. Like the thing in the water was studying them with the same intensity they were studying it. Then it moved. The speed was incomprehensible. One moment it hung in the water 20 feet away. The next, it was gone. No burst of movement, no visible acceleration. It simply vanished into the darkness beyond their lights. The other student, David Park, saw it too. So did the instructor, Patricia Webb. All 3 surfaced and immediately began comparing notes. The descriptions matched: humanoid shape, internal bioluminescence, silver blue eye reflection, impossible speed. Patricia insisted they report it. The university was not interested. Marine biology departments receive countless reports of unusual sightings. Most turn out to be misidentified known species or tricks of light and shadow. Without physical evidence or clear photographs, there was nothing to investigate. Sarah never forgot what she saw. She went on to complete her degree and work for NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. She spent years researching bioluminescent organisms. Nothing in the scientific literature came close to explaining what she witnessed that night. Key West's reputation as a tourist destination grew through the 1980s. More divers came to explore the reefs. More boats ventured into the surrounding waters. The sightings increased proportionally. In 1983, a group of recreational divers encountered something during a night dive near the Vandenberg, an artificial reef created from a decommissioned naval vessel. They described multiple glowing figures moving through the wreck. The shapes seemed to be examining the structure, swimming through corridors and spaces where a human would need to carefully navigate. The figures moved effortlessly. When the divers attempted to approach, the entities retreated deeper into the wreck, disappearing into sections too dangerous for the divers to follow. That same year, a fishing charter reported seeing glowing humanoid shapes swimming beneath their boat during a night fishing trip. The captain, Robert Hayes, initially thought someone had fallen overboard. He killed the engines and deployed emergency lights. The water illuminated, and he saw them, at least 5 figures swimming in formation. They circled the boat once, then descended into deeper water. Hayes had been working charters for 15 years. He had seen dolphins, sharks, sea turtles, every large marine animal common to the area. Nothing explained what he witnessed. The U.S. Navy maintains a significant presence in Key West. Naval Air Station Key West serves as a training facility. Submarines and surface vessels regularly operate in the surrounding waters. In 1991, an unclassified Navy report surfaced regarding unusual sonar contacts. The report, filed by a submarine conducting training exercises, described multiple targets moving at high speed. The sonar signature didn't match any known marine life. The objects moved too fast and changed direction too abruptly. What made the report noteworthy was the depth. The contacts were recorded at over 400 feet. At that depth, light from the surface barely penetrates. Any bioluminescence would be invisible from above. Yet when the submarine surfaced, crew members on deck reported seeing glows in the water. Brief flashes of light that appeared and disappeared rapidly. The Navy classified the incident as unidentified biological contacts. No follow-up investigation was conducted, at least not one made public. Throughout the 1990s, personal underwater cameras became more affordable and widespread. Divers began documenting their experiences routinely. Several videos emerged claiming to show the glowing figures. Most were clearly misidentified jellyfish or other known bioluminescent creatures, but a handful defied easy explanation. One video, shot in 1996 by amateur diver Thomas Reeves, showed something unusual. The footage is grainy, typical of underwater video from that era, but for roughly 8 seconds, a humanoid shape is visible moving across the frame. The glow is evident, the motion is fluid, the proportions are wrong for any known animal. Marine biologists who reviewed the footage offered various explanations. A large shark partially obscured by bioluminescent plankton, a diver in reflective gear, equipment malfunction creating artifacts. None of the explanations fully accounted for what the video showed. Thomas maintained until his death in 2009 that he captured something unexplained. By the 2000s, Key West had become a hotspot for cryptozoology enthusiasts. The term Mer-Beings began appearing in online forums and blogs. Some claimed ancient mermaid legends had basis in these sightings. Others proposed undiscovered species of marine hominids. A few suggested more exotic explanations involving extraterrestrial origin or interdimensional phenomena. The scientific community remained skeptical. Without physical evidence, tissue samples, clear photographs, or multiple independent documentation, there was nothing to investigate formally. Anecdotal accounts, no matter how numerous or consistent, don't constitute scientific proof, but the sightings continued. In 2006, a group of experienced technical divers exploring deeper waters off Key West reported an encounter that stands out for its detail and multiple witnesses. The team consisted of 4 divers, all with extensive cave diving and deep water experience. They were exploring a limestone formation at 180 feet. At that depth, every decision matters. Nitrogen narcosis is a real danger. Bottom time is severely limited. Communication happens through hand signals and lights. Halfway through their planned dive time, all 4 noticed movement simultaneously. Something large was approaching from deeper water. The visibility at that depth was perhaps 30 feet. The object resolved into a humanoid shape as it drew closer. The diver leading the group, Jennifer Callahan, estimated it at 7 feet tall. The proportions were elongated. Arms and legs appeared stretched compared to human anatomy. The hands, if they were hands, seemed webbed. The creature was glowing, not brightly, but enough to be clearly visible, despite the depth. The light pulsed in rhythm, perhaps once every 2 seconds. Blue-white in color with slight variations in intensity. The face was the most disturbing detail. Jennifer described it in her dive log, written immediately after surfacing. The features were humanoid but simplified. large eyes set wide apart, no visible nose, just subtle indentations. A mouth, or what appeared to be a mouth, that remained closed. The skin, if it was skin, looked smooth, almost translucent. The veins or structures beneath were visible, glowing more brightly than the surrounding tissue. The creature stopped approximately 15 feet from the divers. It hung motionless in the water, clearly observing them. Jennifer signaled her team to remain still. For perhaps 90 seconds, both parties watched each other. Then the creature raised one arm. The motion was deliberate, controlled. It extended the limb toward them, palm facing forward. Jennifer didn't know how to interpret the gesture. Greeting? Warning? She raised her own hand in response. The creature tilted its head. The motion was eerily familiar, like someone trying to understand something puzzling. Then it turned and swam away. The speed was extraordinary. Within moments, it had vanished into the deeper water beyond their visibility range. All 4 divers witnessed the encounter. All 4 described nearly identical details in their individual dive logs. They attempted to report the sighting to the university. They contacted marine biology departments, oceanographic institutes, and government agencies. The response was uniformly dismissive. Without physical evidence or clear video documentation, there was nothing to investigate. Jennifer still leads technical diving expeditions in the Keys. She talks openly about what she saw. Some call her delusional, others believe her. She doesn't particularly care either way. She knows what she witnessed. The question that haunts researchers who take these reports seriously is simple but profound. If these creatures exist, where do they live? The waters around Key West have been extensively mapped and studied. Hundreds of thousands of dives have been conducted over the decades. No evidence of underwater dwellings or structures has been found. No physical remains. No artifacts. Nothing to suggest an intelligent aquatic species inhabiting the region. Some propose the creatures live in deeper water and only occasionally venture into the shallower areas where humans operate. The Florida Straits, the channel separating Key West from Cuba, reaches depths of over 6,000 feet. The tongue of the ocean in the Bahamas drops to similar depths. These areas remain largely unexplored. Anything could exist in those depths, unseen and unknown. Others suggest the creatures might be nomadic, traveling through ocean currents and only passing through Key West's waters periodically. This would explain why sightings cluster in certain periods and then disappear for months or years. The bioluminescence remains the most puzzling aspect. Several marine creatures produce light through chemical reactions in their bodies. Jellyfish, certain fish, even some sharks, possess bioluminescent capabilities, but the intensity and pattern described in these sightings exceeds anything documented in known species. The light emanates from throughout the body rather than concentrated in specific organs. It pulses rhythmically, suggesting possible communication or some biological function we don't understand. The eye reflection presents another mystery. Most marine animals that reflect light do so through a structure called the tapetum lucidum, a layer of tissue behind the retina. It helps animals see in low-light conditions. The color of the reflection varies by species, but falls within predictable ranges. The silver-blue reflection described in these sightings is unusual. It doesn't match any known marine animal in the region. In 2012, a research team from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution conducted an extensive survey of the waters surrounding Key West. They were studying coral reef health and mapping the seafloor using advanced sonar and imaging equipment. During night operations, they recorded multiple unidentified sonar contacts. The objects moved at high speed and demonstrated behaviors inconsistent with known marine life. When reviewed, the sonar data showed targets approximately human-sized moving in coordinated patterns. The research team included experienced marine biologists and sonar operators. They couldn't explain the contacts. The data was published in a marine biology journal with a note that further investigation was warranted. No follow-up study was funded. the sightings show no sign of stopping. As recently as 2023, divers and boaters continue reporting encounters with glowing humanoid figures in Key West waters. Social media has made these reports more visible, but also more controversial. Videos appear regularly, claimed to show the creatures. Most are easily debunked as hoaxes or misidentifications, but occasionally footage emerges that resists simple explanation. The consistency of the reports over 70 years is noteworthy. Witnesses describe the same basic characteristics regardless of when the sighting occurred: humanoid shape, internal bioluminescence, unusual eye reflection, high-speed movement, apparent intelligence and awareness. If these were simple misidentifications or hoaxes, one would expect more variation in the descriptions. The skeptical explanation is straightforward. People see what they expect to see. The ocean at night is disorienting. Bioluminescent organisms can create confusing visual effects. Large fish or marine mammals, partially glimpsed in poor lighting, could appear humanoid. The human brain is wired to recognize patterns, especially faces and human forms. It's possible witnesses are experiencing a combination of natural phenomena and psychological expectation, but this explanation struggles to account for the multiple witness sightings. Groups of experienced divers and fishermen simultaneously seeing the same thing suggests something more substantial than individual misperception. The Navy sonar contacts add another dimension. Sonar doesn't experience psychological bias, it detects physical objects. The technical challenge of capturing definitive proof is significant. The creatures, if they exist, appear primarily at night in deep or murky water. They move extremely fast and seem to avoid close approach. Underwater photography in these conditions is difficult even under ideal circumstances. Getting clear footage of a fast-moving, elusive subject is perhaps impossible with current technology. Some researchers suggest the lack of physical evidence might indicate the creatures are extremely intelligent and deliberately avoiding capture or documentation. This raises uncomfortable questions. If an aquatic species has developed intelligence comparable to or exceeding humans, what does that mean? How would such a species view us? Our presence in their environment is intrusive. We hunt their waters. We pollute their habitat. We generate noise that disrupts marine communication. Perhaps these encounters are their way of observing us, studying the strange surface dwellers who invade their territory with lights and machinery. The Key West sightings intersect with a broader pattern of humanoid aquatic encounters reported worldwide. From the waters off Japan to the coasts of Scotland, similar reports exist. Glowing figures in the water, humanoid shapes swimming with impossible grace, intelligent eyes watching from beneath the waves. The details vary by location and culture, but the core description remains consistent. If these reports represent genuine encounters with an unknown species, it would represent one of the most significant zoological discoveries in history. An intelligent aquatic species, possibly with capabilities exceeding our current understanding of marine biology, the implications would be profound. Our understanding of evolution, intelligence, and life in Earth's oceans would require fundamental revision. But without proof, the reports remain anecdotal. Interesting stories told by credible witnesses, unsettling encounters that refuse to fade from memory. The ocean holds secrets we are only beginning to understand. Each decade brings new discoveries. Species thought extinct are found thriving in remote waters. Entire ecosystems exist around deep-sea vents that shouldn't support life according to our previous understanding. The possibility of unknown large animals in the ocean is not as remote as we might think. Key West sits at the edge of deep water. The continental shelf drops away steeply just a few miles offshore. Below that shelf lie depths we have barely explored, regions where pressure and darkness rule, where strange creatures adapted to conditions we can barely imagine. Perhaps something lives down there, something that occasionally ventures into the shallower waters, where humans swim and fish and dive, something that glows in the darkness, something that watches us with silver blue eyes. The fishermen still go out at night. The divers still explore the reefs. Most will never see anything unusual. Their dives will be memorable for the beauty of the reef, the diversity of life, the simple pleasure of floating weightless in blue water. But every so often, someone will see something that doesn't fit. A glow in the water that moves with purpose. A shape that seems too large, too swift, too aware to be any known animal. And they will surface with a story that sounds impossible. A story that matches dozens of others told over 7 decades. A story of something in the water that refuses to be explained away. The scientific establishment will remain skeptical until someone produces evidence that meets their rigorous standards, physical proof, clear documentation, repeatable observations under controlled conditions. That day may never come. The creatures, if they exist, seem adept at avoiding our technology. They appear on their own terms, in their own time. They allow brief glimpses before vanishing into the depths that remain their domain. The question persists. What glides through the dark waters off Key West? What intelligence looks back at us from behind those glowing eyes? What lives in the spaces between what we know and what we fear might be true? The ocean keeps its secrets, but every now and then, in the darkness beneath the waves, those secrets brush against us, leaving us with questions that have no easy answers. The water is always there, vast and deep, holding mysteries we may never fully understand. For those who have seen the glowing figures, the experience changes something fundamental. The ocean is no longer just water and fish and coral. It becomes a place where the impossible might exist, where the boundaries of known reality blur, where something else shares the water with us, something that watches, something that swims, something that glows. The commercial diving industry in Key West has its own collection of stories. Professional divers who work on underwater construction, ship repairs, and salvage operations spend more time below the surface than recreational divers ever will. They see the ocean in ways tourists never do. In 2007, a salvage team was working on a sunken vessel 12 miles offshore. The ship had gone down in a storm 3 months earlier. Insurance companies wanted the cargo recovered. The dive team worked in shifts, spending hours each day in cold, dark water. On the 4th day of operations, diver Marcus Williams was working alone in a section of the hold. His partner was topside, managing equipment. Marcus was cutting through twisted metal when his work light flickered. He tapped it against his palm. The light steadied. Then he saw movement in the cargo hold entrance. A shape blocked the filtered sunlight from above. Marcus assumed it was his partner coming down to check on progress. He turned to signal that everything was fine. The figure in the doorway was not his partner. It was too tall. The proportions were wrong, and it was glowing. Faint blue light emanated from its torso. Marcus froze. His mind struggled to process what he was seeing. The creature moved into the hold. It swam with fluid grace, navigating the twisted metal and debris without effort. Marcus watched it approach. He should have felt fear. His training said to ascend immediately if encountering anything unexpected, but he didn't move. The creature stopped about 6 feet away. This close, Marcus could see details. The skin appeared smooth but not quite solid, almost translucent. Beneath the surface, structures moved, organs maybe, or something else entirely. The face was the hardest part to describe later. It had features, eyes definitely, a mouth, but they were arranged in ways that seemed almost human but not quite right. The eyes were too large, set too far apart. They didn't blink. They just stared at him with that silver blue reflection. The creature raised one hand. The fingers were long, webbed between them. It reached toward Marcus's face mask. He held still. Every instinct screamed at him to pull away, but he didn't. The webbed hand touched the glass of his mask, gently, almost curiously, like it was trying to understand what it was touching. Then it pulled back. The creature's mouth opened slightly. No sound came out, at least none that Marcus could hear through his helmet, but he felt something, a vibration in the water, low frequency. It resonated in his chest. Then the creature turned and swam out of the hold. Marcus immediately signaled to ascend. On the surface, he tried to explain what happened. His partner hadn't seen anything enter the water. No other divers were in the area. Marcus finished the job. He collected his pay. And he never took another deep water contract in the Keys. Some experiences don't need repeating. The creatures seem to show more curiosity about certain types of people. Children, interestingly, report sightings more often than adults. In 2009, a family was snorkeling in shallow water off Smathers Beach. Their 8-year-old daughter, Emma Rodriguez, was floating face down, watching small fish dart around the turtle grass. She saw something moving in deeper water beyond the grass beds. At first, she thought it was a dolphin, then it came closer. Emma later described it as a glowing lady. She said the lady was beautiful. She had long hair that moved in the water like seaweed. Her eyes were big and kind, and she smiled at Emma. The creature gestured for Emma to follow. Without thinking, Emma began swimming toward deeper water. Her father noticed and grabbed her fins. He pulled her back toward shore. Emma cried. She wanted to go with the glowing lady. She said the lady was lonely and wanted to show her something wonderful. When her parents asked what she saw, Emma drew a picture. The drawing showed a humanoid figure with elongated limbs and large eyes. The torso had wavy lines radiating outward. Her interpretation of the glow, child psychologists who later reviewed the case noted that Emma showed no signs of making up the story. She believed completely in what she saw. Her parents were more skeptical, but admitted they saw something in the water. Something that moved too deliberately to be random marine life. Emma is in her 20s now. She still remembers that day clearly. She still believes she saw something real, something that meant her no harm, something that wanted to communicate. The US Coast Guard maintains records of unusual incidents in their patrol zones. Most are routine: boats in distress, medical emergencies, search and rescue operations. But occasionally, reports come in that don't fit standard categories. In 2014, a Coast Guard cutter was on night patrol 30 miles west of Key West. The crew was conducting routine checks when their radar picked up multiple contacts moving at high speed. The contacts appeared to be just below the surface. Moving in formation, the speed was recorded at over 40 knots. No known marine animal can sustain that speed. Even the fastest dolphins top out around 30 knots in short bursts. The officer on watch called the captain to the bridge. They watched the radar contacts for 20 minutes. The objects maintained perfect spacing. They changed direction in unison, like a coordinated group operating with purpose. The captain ordered spotlights activated. When the beams hit the water, the crew saw them, glowing shapes just beneath the surface. 5 of them moving in a V formation. The glow pulsed in sync across all 5 objects. The captain ordered the boat to approach. As they drew closer, the objects descended. The radar lost contact at approximately 300 feet. The entire crew witnessed the event. 18 sailors. All gave consistent statements. The incident was logged, officially classified as unidentified biological contacts. No investigation followed. Military encounters with these phenomena are more common than publicly acknowledged. Naval personnel are discouraged from discussing unusual sightings. Operational security concerns, potential ridicule, career implications. But sailors talk among themselves. Stories circulate. Submarines picking up odd sonar contacts becomes routine in some areas. Surface vessels seeing strange lights in the water. Pilots spotting glows beneath the waves during night flights. One former Navy sonar technician, who requested anonymity, described his experience in 2016. His submarine was conducting exercises in deep water south of Key West. He was monitoring passive sonar when he detected something unusual, multiple contacts moving below the submarine. At over 600 feet depth, the contacts were metallic. That's what confused him. Biological targets show up differently on sonar than metallic objects. These had characteristics of both. They moved like living things, but they reflected sound like metal. He reported it to his supervisor. The response was immediate. He was told to log it as unknown and forget about it. When he pressed for more information, he was reminded that discussing classified operations could result in court-martial. He dropped the subject, but he never forgot what he detected. Years later, out of the service, he wonders what swims in those depths. What kind of creatures could produce sonar returns that mimic metal? The academic response to these sightings remains largely dismissive, but a few researchers have begun to take the reports seriously. Dr. Lisa Hammond, a marine biologist at Florida Atlantic University, has been quietly investigating the Key West sightings since 2018. She doesn't advertise her research. Her colleagues already view her with suspicion. She has collected over 200 first-hand accounts. She has interviewed fishermen, divers, Coast Guard personnel, and tourists. The consistency of the descriptions is what convinced her something genuine is happening. Dr. Hammond has proposed several hypotheses. One involves deep-sea gigantism, the phenomenon where deep-water creatures grow significantly larger than their shallow-water relatives. Perhaps an unknown species of octopus or squid has evolved bioluminescence and body shapes that appear humanoid under certain conditions. The problem with this theory is behavior. Cephalopods are intelligent, but they don't demonstrate the sustained curiosity and apparent awareness described in these encounters. Another hypothesis involves convergent evolution. Perhaps an aquatic mammal, possibly descended from early cetaceans, evolved along a different path. Developed bioluminescence through symbiotic relationships with bacteria, retained more mammalian features than modern whales and dolphins. This would explain the humanoid appearance and apparent intelligence. But no fossil record supports such a species. No genetic evidence exists. It would represent a complete gap in our understanding of marine mammal evolution. Dr. Hammond's most controversial theory involves the possibility of a technologically advanced species, not extraterrestrial, but rather terrestrial aquatic beings who developed intelligence separate from humans, who live in the deep ocean where we rarely venture, who have technologies we don't understand, technologies that allow them to generate light, to move at impossible speeds, to avoid our detection systems. This theory borders on science fiction. But Dr. Hammond points out that the ocean floor remains less explored than the surface of Mars. Entire ecosystems exist that we discovered only in recent decades. The possibility of intelligent aquatic life is not as far-fetched as it seems. Local fishermen have developed their own theories over the decades. Some believe the creatures are spirits of drowned sailors. The waters around Key West have claimed countless lives over the centuries. Shipwrecks, storms, pirates. Perhaps some essence remains, bound to the water, visible under certain conditions. This theory doesn't explain the physical aspects, the sonar contacts, the way dolphins and fish react to the creature's presence, but it resonates with those who spend their lives on the water, who understand the ocean as a living entity with memory and intention. Other fishermen take a more practical view. They believe it's a new species, something that migrated into the area or evolved recently. They point to other species that have appeared in Florida waters over the past decades: lionfish, previously unknown jellyfish. Climate change and warming waters create new ecological niches. Perhaps these creatures are filling one of those niches. The tourism industry in Key West has a complicated relationship with the sightings. On one hand, mystery sells. Tour operators offer night snorkel trips marketed as opportunities to see bioluminescence. Some quietly hint at the possibility of seeing something more unusual. On the other hand, too much talk of unknown creatures could scare away visitors. Parents don't want their children swimming in water that might harbor unknown entities. The Chamber of Commerce has never officially acknowledged the sightings, but privately, tourism officials track the reports. They note when clusters of sightings occur. They monitor social media for videos and photographs. They want to be prepared if something definitive surfaces. If proof emerges that would thrust Key West into the international spotlight, the economic impact would be significant either way. In 2019, a film crew from a nature documentary series came to Key West. They wanted to investigate the reports. They brought underwater cameras, sonar equipment, a team of marine biologists and camera operators. They spent 3 weeks in the area, conducted dozens of night dives, interviewed witnesses. The result was disappointing. They captured footage of bioluminescent plankton, some interesting fish behavior, coral reef spawning events, but nothing unexplained, nothing that would support the existence of unknown humanoid creatures. The lead researcher concluded that the sightings were likely misidentifications, that the human tendency to see patterns and faces in random stimuli was creating these reports, that the consistency came from cultural contamination. Once the idea of glowing swimmers entered local folklore, people began seeing what they expected to see. The documentary aired to modest ratings. Skeptics felt vindicated. Believers felt the crew simply hadn't looked in the right places at the right times. The sightings continued, regardless of what the documentary concluded. Just 2 months after the crew left, a dive instructor saw 3 glowing figures swimming through the wreck of the Cayman salvage master. She didn't report it publicly, but she mentioned it to her regular clients, the ones she trusted, the ones who wouldn't think she was crazy. Technology continues to advance. Underwater drones, better cameras, improved sonar systems. Each year brings new tools for ocean exploration, yet the creatures remain elusive. If they exist, they seem to know when they're being watched deliberately. They appear on their own terms, allow brief glimpses, then vanish before clear documentation is possible. Some researchers suggest this indicates high intelligence, the ability to recognize recording devices, to understand that certain behaviors bring unwanted attention, to deliberately avoid creating proof of their existence. This level of awareness would place them among the most intelligent species on Earth. Others argue it simply means the sightings aren't real, that if these creatures existed, someone would have captured definitive proof by now, that the lack of evidence is itself evidence of absence. The debate continues. Meanwhile, the encounters persist. Every few months, a new report surfaces, sometimes from credible witnesses with nothing to gain from publicity, sometimes from people who don't even know about the previous sightings, who describe the same details independently: the glowing torsos, the elongated limbs, the silver blue eyes, the impossible speed. The patterns remain consistent. The question of communication haunts those who have encountered the creatures up close. Several witnesses describe feeling something during their sightings, not quite hearing, but sensing, a presence in their minds, emotions that don't feel entirely their own. Jennifer Callahan, the technical diver who saw the creature at 180 feet, described feeling curiosity from it. Not her own curiosity, but the creature's curiosity directed at her. She felt it examining her, trying to understand what she was. Marcus Williams, the salvage diver, described something similar. When the creature touched his face mask, he felt questions, not in words, but as impressions, concepts. The creature wanted to know what the mask was, why he needed it, how he could survive in water when he so clearly wasn't designed for it. These descriptions edge into territory that makes scientists uncomfortable: telepathy, psychic communication, concepts without scientific basis. But the witnesses are consistent. They describe experiences that felt like communication without language. Marine mammals like dolphins and whales use sophisticated acoustic signals, clicks, whistles, songs that travel vast distances. Scientists have documented complex patterns in these vocalizations, behaviors that suggest language or at least information transfer. If an unknown aquatic species exists, It would likely have its own communication methods, perhaps operating at frequencies humans can't hear, or using other senses entirely. The low-frequency vibrations some witnesses describe might be attempts at communication, the creatures using whatever methods work in their world, not realizing humans can't properly receive the signals, like someone shouting to a deaf person. The intent is there, but the message doesn't translate. The bioluminescence itself might be communication. The pulsing patterns could convey information, emotional states, warnings. The way the light synchronized in the Coast Guard sighting suggests coordination, shared information, allowing the group to move as one. Perhaps humans witnessing these displays are seeing conversations, messages passed between creatures in a language of light. If you spend enough time talking to people who have seen these creatures, certain themes emerge. Most describe feeling no direct threat. The beings seem curious rather than aggressive. They observe. They occasionally approach, but they don't attack. This is noteworthy. If these were predators, someone would have been harmed by now. The fact that no injuries have been attributed to these encounters suggests peaceful intent, or at least indifference. Several witnesses describe feeling sadness from the creatures, a sense of loneliness or loss, as if the beings were mourning something. This might be projection, humans interpreting alien behavior through familiar emotional frameworks, or it might be genuine. If these creatures possess intelligence and emotion, they might indeed feel isolation, being aware in an ocean increasingly dominated by human activity, watching their world change, unable to communicate their concerns to the species causing the changes. The environmental angle cannot be ignored. Key West has changed dramatically over the past 70 years. Coastal development, increased boat traffic, pollution, climate change affecting water temperature and coral health. If an unknown species inhabits these waters, it has witnessed profound transformation of its habitat. The creatures might be investigating humans because we are the obvious source of the changes, trying to understand what we are doing, why we behave the way we do. Some encounters take on different meaning viewed through this lens. The creature that touched Marcus Williams's face mask might have been examining human technology, trying to understand the tools that allow humans to invade aquatic environments. The figure that gestured to Emma Rodriguez might have been attempting contact with a young human, someone not yet fully integrated into adult human society, someone who might be more open to communication. These interpretations are speculative, but they offer frameworks for understanding behaviors that otherwise seem random. The absence of bodies or remains is often cited as proof these creatures don't exist. If they were real, surely one would have washed ashore by now, or been caught in fishing nets, or left some trace of its physical existence. But the ocean is vast. Dead marine animals sink, scavengers consume remains quickly. Even known species rarely leave bodies that reach shore intact. If these creatures live primarily in deep water, any remains would decompose at depth, under pressure. In cold water, where decomposition happens slowly, the conditions would reduce bodies to scattered bones or fragments that would be nearly impossible to identify. And that assumes the creatures die in ways that would leave recoverable remains. Perhaps they have behaviors around death that prevent bodies from being found. Many animal species have such behaviors: elephants with their graveyards, whales that sound to great depths when dying. If these beings possess intelligence, they might deliberately prevent their dead from being discovered by humans. The video evidence that does exist remains frustratingly inconclusive. Hours of footage show interesting things, unusual light patterns, shapes that might be anything, but nothing that definitively proves the existence of unknown creatures. Skeptics point to this as expected. If people were really seeing what they claim, someone would have captured clear footage by now. Believers counter that the creatures are too fast, too wary of lights and cameras, that the ocean at night is simply too dark for current camera technology to capture clear images of fast-moving bioluminescent objects. Both arguments have merit. The truth likely sits somewhere in the middle. Some sightings are surely misidentifications. Others might be real but impossible to document with available equipment. The challenge of underwater photography at night cannot be overstated. Even in clear water, visibility drops to feet rather than yards. Bioluminescence looks different on camera than to the human eye. Fast motion blurs. The end result is footage that shows something but proves nothing. Tantalizing glimpses that fuel speculation without providing answers. If you have spent time in the waters around Key West, you know the feeling, the sense that you are not alone, that something just beyond your sight is aware of your presence. Most dismiss it as imagination, the natural unease of being in an environment where you don't belong. But some know differently. They have seen what swims in the darkness. They have looked into eyes that reflect light in ways that should not be possible. They carry that knowledge with them, a secret glimpsed in the depths, a mystery that refuses to be solved. The water remains, deep and dark and full of possibility. Every night, divers descend, fishermen venture out. The ocean continues its eternal rhythms, and somewhere beneath the surface, perhaps something watches. Something that glows. Something that wonders about the strange visitors from above. Something that has learned to remain hidden while observing. The encounters will continue, the reports will accumulate, the debate will persist, and the question will remain unanswered. What swims in the waters off Key West? What intelligence dwells in the depths we have barely begun to explore? What truths hide behind those silver blue eyes that watch from the darkness?